Hey makers, looking for a fun, fashionable hair accessory that keeps your hair out of your face for us short-haired cuties and our long-haired counterparts? I've got you covered today with an easy sew headband inspired by a 90s fashion mainstay, the scrunchie. Tons of excellent tutorials exist to sew the traditional scrunchie. So I'm throwing in a slight twist that is, in and of itself, endlessly customizable to your own ideas, needs, and tastes. I'm Ashley from Makeorium, and I believe that everyone is creative. Sometimes, though, we lose our belief in our creativity and our sense of self in the busyness, demands, and responsibilities of day-to-day life. I'm here to help you discover, rediscover, or reclaim your own identity by exercising and developing your own creativity through products, content, coaching, and abundant encouragement. Let's go make something. I think this headband is an awesome canvas for customization. And it's so easy, I promise. It's totally accessible for the beginner, and it's a super quick, easy sew for our more experienced sewing friends. We're going to start by measuring our heads, or the head of the person for whom you're sewing this headband. If you don't have access to the person for whom you're sewing, that's okay. We're going to talk about how to deal with that situation in a little bit. So just hang in there with me. We're going to get started. And what you need is a flexible measuring tape. Now let's pretend that you don't have a flexible measuring tape. Worst comes to worst, get a piece of string, like some spare yarn, and you'll just wrap it around the person's head or your own head, and then you can measure that against a standard ruler. So you want to measure around where you're going to wear that headband. So kind of start in the back and measure around the top. Pull it taut. And you don't want it to be too tight, just kind of nice, somewhat snug, but not tight. So you don't want to give yourself a headache. So for me, that's 21 and a half. So I have a size chart on my blog that will give you specific cutting instructions based on your head circumference. I've linked it below. It's also accompanied by written instructions of what we're going to talk about in this video today, in case it's easier for you to go back and reference written instructions, or if it's helpful to you to have both the written instructions and the video to go along. Access to the blog post is completely free, but if you're interested in a printable PDF that is a little bit more optimized for printing, I do have that available for sale as well. It's definitely not necessary to complete this tutorial. It's not necessary to access the written instructions on the blog, which you can definitely print from the blog to your printer. But if you want something that's a little bit more optimized, or you're just looking to help support me, I totally appreciate it, but not necessary. It's just there if you need it. The sizes on the blog with the cutting instructions are grouped into generic sizes. There's a toddler, a child, a tween, women's, and men's sizes. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to fall exactly into one of these, but it's just for guidance. If you don't have access to the wearer, it gives you the opportunity to make an educated. And truly, the variance isn't tremendous between each of the sizes. And so if you kind of just pick something based on what you think will probably work, chances are you're going to be right. The type of fabric is truly your choice. I've got one here that is made of a knit. It's kind of a shiny knit. I've also got a gauzy fabric here. And then I have a cotton. It doesn't take a lot of fabric, and so it's very difficult to mess up. And as I'm always trying to remind myself and my boys, mistakes are just opportunities to learn something new. Nothing bad will happen if you mess this up. You just try again. let's do this. You've cut your pieces according to the cutting instructions. You have a 1-inch wide strip of elastic, a back piece, an interior front piece with interfacing to match. I've used Shapeflex, also known as Pellin SF101, and an exterior front piece. I've used little labels to label each piece temporarily. It makes it easier to keep track of each piece. It's something I often do when sewing, and I find it really useful, but it's completely optional. Now, the front exterior piece, which is the piece that will form the main scrunchie, is a very long piece, so you may not have a wide enough piece of fabric to accommodate it. No biggie, you have two options. First, you can just cut a shorter piece. That will result in a less full scrunchie, so you'll have to decide if that approach will help you achieve the look you want. Alternatively, you can cut 2 or more pieces and then sew them together to achieve your desired length. Just be sure to add seam allowance accordingly. In this case, my fabric was too narrow, so I've cut 2 pieces and added 1/2 inch of seam allowance to each piece. I'm going to sew the pieces together on the short side to create one longer piece. Make sure to backstitch at either end to secure your sewing. After sewing, press the seam. Since this piece will form the scrunchie, you'll find that the seam is hardly noticeable. Set this piece aside for now. Get your back portion and your interior front portion. Because I've used jersey, my interior front portion is still stretchy. Adding interfacing is going to change that quality. Even if you've used woven fabric, I recommend using interfacing on this piece. This will make a more stable base for your headband and for the scrunchie portion. Follow the manufacturer's instructions to fuse the interfacing to your interior front portion. Fold both short ends of the interior front piece down by 1/2 inch, wrong sides together. Press. Then, fold the interior front piece in half, lengthwise, right sides together. Pin or clip. You'll sew this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You'll also repeat this step with the back piece, again folding in half lengthwise, right sides together, pinning or clipping along the open side. Now we're going to go and sew both of these with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Be sure to backstitch at both ends to secure your stitches. We're going to turn both tubes inside out. I've got a variety of tools here that can help turn a relatively skinny tube right side out. Use what you've got, or what you might think will work best for you. Option 1 is a loop turner. It has a little hook at one end that hooks into the fabric. Option 2 is a chopstick, or even just a stick. Use what you've got, man. 3 is a bodkin. 4 is a pair of forceps. Yep, like those the doctors use. They have lots of lovely sewing uses too. 5th is a safety pin. I'd recommend a large one for this purpose, but you can make do with a small one if necessary. turn both tubes right side out. Then press, centering the seam in the middle of one side of the tube. This will allow you to keep the seam on the back side out of sight when you're wearing the headband. Set the interior front piece to the side and get the back piece. Mark both ends of the back piece half an inch from each end using the temporary marking tool of your choice. I'm using a Clover water-soluble pencil. There are lots of different types of temporary marking tools, but when it comes to water-soluble pencils, the Clover brand is, hands down, my favorite. I find it to be extremely reliable, and I've never had any problems with the markings washing out, which I have experienced with other brands. Frankly, I feel that way about every Clover product I've ever used. Reliable and high quality. Not sponsored, but Clover, if you want to throw money at me, I am all for it. Now you're going to get your elastic and feed it into the back piece. I use my bodkin here. What you do is you put the elastic between the two legs of the bodkin and then slide the ring down to close and secure the bodkin over the elastic. If you don't have a bodkin, a safety pin is a great tool to help you feed the elastic through the back piece. Once one end of the elastic is even with one end of the tube, clip or pin the elastic to the end of the tube. Leave the bodkin, safety pin, or whatever tool you used to feed the elastic through the loop attached to the elastic. You're going to stitch the tube and the elastic at one short end here with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. After you've stitched one end of the tube closed with the elastic even with the end of the tube, continue feeding the elastic through the tube. End with the other end of the elastic lying even with the other end of the tube. Pin or clip closed and stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Remember to trim any threads as you go along to ensure that you have a nice, clean product when you're finished. Now, get your interior front piece. You're going to insert one end of the back piece into one end of the interior front piece up to the mark you made earlier, designating half an inch from the end of the tube. It's not critical since the interior front piece will be covered, but I do like to match the seams of both pieces together. Sew these together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Be sure to backstitch at both ends to secure your stitches. Set this piece aside for just a moment. Get your long exterior front piece. Fold both short ends of the interior front piece down by half an inch, wrong sides together, just like you did with the interior front piece. Press. You'll notice that I forgot to do this here and I had to fold down the ends later. Do as I say and not as I do. However, if you forget like I did, it's not the end of the world. You can fold them down later. It's just a bit easier to do it now. Then, fold the interior front piece in half, lengthwise, right sides together. Pin or clip. You'll sew this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. As always, remember to backstitch at both ends. Turn the tube right side out using your preferred method. Press the tube, centering the seam on one side. Get your combined back piece, interior front piece, and clip your bodkin or safety pin to the unsewn end of the interior front piece. Feed the combined piece through the exterior front piece until the first end of the exterior front piece aligns with the mark on the sewn back and the interior front piece. You're going to want the seam on the exterior front piece to align with the seam on the back piece. Clip these together. Just like when we sewed one end of the elastic inside the back piece tube, keep the bodkin or safety pin attached to the unsewn end of the interior front piece. After you clip them together, you'll want to make a little pleat so that the width of the opening of the exterior front piece matches the width of the back piece. You'll see in the video that I made the pleat on the back side of the headband, that is, the side with the seam. However, after wearing it, I'd recommend that you make the pleat on the outside, the side opposite of the side with the seam. It's just more comfortable to wear that way, particularly if you're using a thicker fabric. Sew together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Pull the unsewn end of the interior front piece all the way through the exterior front piece. And tuck the back piece inside of the interior front piece up to the mark 1/2 inch from the end of the back piece. Sew together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, just like you did on the other side. Now, pull the free end of the exterior front piece down to the mark on the back piece. Form a pleat on the outside of the headband to match the width of the exterior front piece to the width of the back piece, and sew close to the edge of the exterior front piece, just like you did on the other side. And you're done. You did it! You can slide the scrunchie part around a bit, concentrating it on either side, or spreading it evenly across the headband so that you can achieve whatever look you want. Try it on, wear it around proudly, saying, "Thanks, I made it," to whomever compliments you on it.
Easy peasy, right? I can't wait to see what you've made. Tag me at Makeorium on Instagram and subscribe below for more creative fun. Happy making!